You're listening to Your Words Unleashed podcast with host Dr. Leslie Wong, helping women scholars master their writing habits and publish a book that matters. Hey there, writers. I hope your semester's off to a good start and you're not getting overwhelmed just yet. So let me start off by asking you a very direct question. Do you dread writing? Does it feel like pulling teeth to get yourself to work on your book or an important article? Do you find yourself doing just about anything else to avoid writing? Are you spending ridiculous amounts of time cleaning your floor, alphabetizing your books, or reading endless amounts of research that's only tangentially related to your topic? Let's be honest, even listening to this podcast can count as procrastination if you're doing it to avoid actually writing. Well, let me just say that you are not alone. Internal resistance to writing is something that nearly every author feels at some point. It's not a problem in and of itself. Where it gets to be a problem is when you realize months have gone by and you haven't made any progress on your work. Writing a book is hard enough without fighting against yourself or trying to force yourself to do something you'd rather not do. So today, I want to give you 4 different strategies to help you stop dreading writing, or at the very least, to bring down your resistance so you can start moving things forward. You can find the full transcript of this episode at yourwordsunleashed.com/48. So many of the authors I work with say that sitting down to write is like going into battle. Before they can even get to work, they need to overcome their own self-doubts and anxieties about their ideas and their productivity. And I found that those who resist writing the most tend to fall into one of 2 overlapping categories: perfectionists and folks who are experiencing imposter syndrome. As a recovering perfectionist myself, and someone who suffered from imposter syndrome for most of my academic career, I can completely relate. Academics often strive for flawless work, creating immense pressure to produce something impeccable from the get-go. It's like trying to hit a home run with every sentence, and that can be paralyzing. So that's why my first strategy is to employ the 85% rule. And this is something I talked about at length in podcast number 44, Why and How to Do Less. Basically, it's about taking the pressure off of yourself to do anything, including writing, at 100% effort or to 100% quality. This is because when you're trying to perform at 100%, then anything else counts as failure. And it sounds sort of ridiculous when you say it out loud, especially because we know that standards are subjective. But sometimes it's hard to know the difference between producing something that's good quality versus trying to make something perfect before we let anyone else see it. And for some perfectionists, the fear of not getting things right from the beginning, and here I'm putting right in quotes, slows them down to the point where nothing gets written at all. And this obviously creates a vicious cycle of doubt, fear, judgment, and ultimately not getting anything done. So my answer to all of this is to shoot for 85%. Or at least a number that's more forgiving, that doesn't also make you cringe. It needs to be a number that's motivating for you. And in fact, one of my clients chose 50% as her number because anything higher than that stressed her out. This number should let your nervous system relax. It should allow you to embrace writing as a process where things improve over time and not just see it in terms of a perfectly and immediately executed outcome. Your writing becomes a low-stakes draft that you can send out for external feedback, and you're able to ask for this feedback earlier because everything is just a work in progress. When I was a grad student and beyond, I tried to get my drafts in almost totally finished shape before I would let anyone see them. Obviously, this took forever and was not enjoyable in the least. But then I observed 2 of my peers doing things in totally different ways and they were moving forward much faster because they were not gripped by perfectionism. Both benefited hugely from not trying to get things to 100%. So in the first case, I'd been accepted to present at my first all-expenses-paid workshop. They were going to pay for my flight and 2 nights in a hotel, plus a distinguished faculty member was assigned to be the discussant on my panel. And I was thrilled and incredibly anxious about my paper. So I worked nonstop for a month, including at night in my bed, so that I could turn out a complete 30-page paper. And even then, I was so worried about how it would read. Then when I actually got to the panel, I realized another grad student co-panelist had turned in a half-written paper that was only 11 pages long. I was totally shocked that someone would do this, and obviously the comments on her paper were pretty sparse. But this person turned in what she had, and she didn't seem particularly worried about it. And in case you're wondering, this person is now a tenured faculty member at an Ivy League school, so things worked out just fine for her. So I'm not saying that half-assing your writing is a good thing. It just helped me see that maybe I didn't need to kill myself to perfect something that was clearly meant to be just a draft. And secondly, in grad school, I had a close friend and writing group member who would write by doing massive brain dumps. She would just write and write and write without editing. Then she would show the work to other people, get good feedback, and only then would she hone things down. Her style really stood out to me because I was often spending an hour just trying to perfect one sentence of my dissertation before I allowed myself to move on. And this friend ultimately became one of the most productive scholars I know in terms of high-level publications. While teaching 3 or 4 courses per semester at her university, she's managed to publish 2 sole-authored books and place articles in nearly all of the top-ranked journals in her field. So letting go of perfectionism and letting others help you earlier are huge factors in professional success. So my second main strategy for cutting down on internal resistance to writing is to work less, but in a more focused way. So a lot of productivity scholars talk about working smarter, not harder. And it may sound cliche, but it's actually super effective and very good for your mental health. Doing this requires you find a regular writing slot where you are the most alert and writing only during that time of day. This is what writing coach Kathy Mazak calls tiger time. In a blog post titled, "Why You Don't Have to Write Every Day and What to Do Instead," she talks about why trying to write every day for long periods of time could actually be counterproductive. Instead, she says, write during your best, most focused, most high-energy times, and do not write at other times. So to find your tiger time, she recommends keeping a journal for 5 days. Every hour that you're working, reflect on how you're feeling. Then mark that hour with different colors based on how you're feeling. For example, she suggests using green to signal the time when you have the most energy, inspiration, and drive. Blue, when you're still energized but slowing down. Orange, when you're distracted or procrastinating. And red, when you're completely exhausted. And after the 5 days, you look back over your color-coded journal. Those green slots are your tiger time, and blue is your second best choice. And she recommends using this as a guide to block off consistent 1 to 2 hour time slots on your calendar. This system works well for folks who only have short periods of time to write and are juggling a lot of different obligations. And it also relieves you of guilt for not doing things like working at night, since you're not going to get much done anyway, for the most part. On the other hand, many of my clients actually do better with taking one entire day a week and writing in a long block during that day. These folks need longer to get into the headspace of writing and to orient themselves in their work. And once they're in the flow, they like to keep going. So that works too. The key is to be consistent and to not let other things get in the way. And just one more thing, if you've been avoiding doing a particular task or piece of writing because it's hard, turn to it first when your energy tank is still full. So this gets us to my third suggestion for reducing writing dread, which is to cut down on any and all distractions. Studies show that the more you switch between tasks in a day, the less energy you have overall. So here's 4 things you can do to cut down on task switching. First, and probably most important, is to implement an email rule. So for many academics, doing email completely intrudes on their writing time, and a 2-hour writing slot easily turns into 1 or less. And even though people know that if they answer emails, they're more likely adding more work to their plates, they often feel obligated to help other people and prioritize that over helping themselves. And there's also the attraction of that endorphin hit you get from completing a task and being able to cross it off your list. So an email rule is something that keeps you from checking any email during your writing time. It could be something like, I will check emails for 30 minutes max before I write. Or a lot of my clients will only check emails after lunch for an hour and actually put that into their calendar. Secondly, you need to turn off all your notifications on your phone and your computer. And a third thing you should do if you're sharing a household with other people is to let them know you're completely unavailable during that time, except in the case of emergency. And finally, if you are someone who tends to break up your day with errands, you could consider ways to combine them so you can save time and not have to task switch as much. So for example, one of my clients realized it was better for her writing and energy level if she combined grocery shopping and other mundane tasks with picking her kids up from school. And then she could have a more concentrated writing block in the middle of the day when she was the most alert. So this gets to my fourth and final strategy for reducing writing resistance, which is to co-write with others. There are so many obvious reasons why working alongside other people is useful for writing. The first is that it provides a motivational boost. One of the hardest things about writing a book is that it can be such a solitary endeavor, and it's so easy to feel isolated. And that isolation makes the typical self-doubts and anxieties that people already have about their writing much worse. So co-writing sessions provide motivation, a sense of camaraderie, and social connection. Knowing that others are working alongside you and you have someone to share your struggles with and celebrate your successes with can help you stay focused on your goals. Secondly, co-writing creates a sense of external accountability that can be otherwise lacking when you're working on a long-term project like a book. When you commit to weekly writing sessions with others, there's a shared responsibility to show up and to make progress. So it's like having workout buddies, but for your writing goals. And now that everyone's on Zoom, it's relatively easy to meet up and work together. Also, if you don't have a regular writing group or writing partners, they're pretty easy to find online. On the episode page, I will link to a post by developmental editor Laura Portwood-Stacer that lists out a bunch of different free co-writing groups that you can join today. So check that out. And I've even matched some of my clients up with one another to co-write, and it's been working out really well for them. I know that co-writing for a couple hours every weekday is the key to one of my clients finally finishing a full draft of her manuscript, which is now out for review at a top press. So there you have it, my advice for ways to cut down on your dread of writing. Let me sum up my 4 main points here. First, employ the 85% rule. Second, work less but in a more focused way by establishing a writing routine based on when you're most alert. Third, cut down on any and all distractions, especially email. And fourth, co-write with others for companionship and accountability. Finally, I just want you to remember a few things. Everyone dreads writing at some point. You are not alone. I cannot say that enough. And keep in mind that dread actually sucks up all of your energy. Procrastination often takes just as much effort as actually just doing the thing. The trick is to make a lot of small, intentional decisions ahead of time so that your inner resistance doesn't have as much fuel. Good luck trying out these strategies, and get in touch with me if you need more help. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for tuning in to Your Words Unleashed podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with other writers or leave a rating and review. To find the full transcript and catch all the latest from me, check out my website, yourwordsunleashed.com. I'll talk to you next time. Happy writing!